Hey guys, this is Jaden McNeil. Actually, this is Dylan from J Perm, and you're listening to the CornerCutter podcast.
Hey, welcome to the CornerCutter podcast. Podcasting since 2014 and cubing since 2015. I'm your host Josh, and this is the most consistent speed cubing podcast dedicated to entertain and educate you with in-depth conversations with cubers from all across the sport. My website is thecornercutterpodcast.com, and thank you so much for joining me today for this episode, which is episode 60. Wow, we're getting up there. So if this is your first time listening to this podcast, thank you so much for checking it out. And if you haven't clicked the subscribe button yet, please do. You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and many other podcast apps and directories. So there's plenty of options there, so you can listen wherever, whenever you want. So today's interview is with Dylan Wang, who hosts the YouTube channel J Perm. We have an interesting discussion. We talk about how he had so much growth, getting over 200 subscribers per day. That's right, 200 subscribers per day. We talk all about that, what he likes doing in his videos, how he came up with the name J Perm, and lots of other stuff as well, all about YouTube and growing his channel. So we'll jump into that in just a second, but first I wanted to let you know that I just crossed 100 subscribers on my YouTube channel. So I'm doing a giveaway. I'm giving away a cube that is worth $4 or under from cubezz.com. So this is a worldwide giveaway. That's the only way I can do it worldwide. So how you enter is you go to my channel, thecornercutterpodcast.com/YouTube, and watch the video that is on there right now. It should be the second to last video, and I go through the steps there. I've already got a bunch of entries and some great entries, so make sure to get over there and check it out. As always, feel free to email me. Please reach out. My email address is josh@thecornercutterpodcast.com. I would love to hear your comments, suggestions, or questions you have for me or about the podcast. Or if you have any comments on today's episode, maybe with J Perm's interview, please let me know. josh@thecornercutterpodcast.com. Now let's jump into the in-depth, informative interview with J Perm. Dylan, thanks for joining me today on episode 60 of the CornerCutter podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Wow, 60, that's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm coming up on 2 years in December, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's interesting. I think I just hit 2 years with my channel 2 months ago. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, we started around the same time then.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So what's something interesting about yourself that most people wouldn't know?
I think one thing, I'll kind of give two different answers, but one thing is things that people very commonly ask me on my channel. I feel like that's one possible thing, because I guess it's interesting enough that they wanted to know the answer to it. And it's also I get the question so much that I guess a lot of people don't know, but I also answer the question so much that I feel like everyone should know by now. But it's are you left-handed? And I also made an entire video titled am I left-handed? And no, I'm not left-handed. I do all my Alex left-handed because I used both of my hands. At some point when I was advanced enough, I realized that that wasn't a good idea. And I'm not going to go into the details of why using both of your hands equally is not a good idea in 3x3. But I just picked whichever hand was faster, and it was my left hand. So I was like, am I going to be a little bit slower as far as I could tell by using my right hand, or am I going to mirror every single algorithm I ever have to use and pick my left hand? And I was like, I'll just use my left hand. It's faster. It's probably going to still be faster in the future. And I don't know if that was the right decision, but no, whatever.
Mm-hmm. What hand do you use for 3x3 one-handed?
Also left hand. That's okay. For a different reason, though. I would use my right hand if I was trying to be optimal because, you don't have to mirror your algs. But the reason I use left hand is because I used to play tennis a lot, and I play tennis right-handed, obviously, because I'm right-handed. And so I was having a little bit of wrist troubles, so I didn't want to make that any worse by doing one-hand solving, because that was also pretty strenuous on my hand. So I just picked left hand for one hand. So I don't know if that was the right idea either, but whatever. I don't practice one hand anymore anyway. The other interesting thing about me that people wouldn't know, actually, usually when people ask me this, it's not in a cubing context. So I would say, oh, I can solve a Rubik's Cube, but I guess that doesn't work here.
That's cool.
Oh, we could all do that. So I guess it's that, well, I play tennis, and like a lot of people, I guess, wouldn't know that, but I can't think of that many more interesting things about myself other than that. So, and I did kind of mention it earlier, so that's kind of it. I used to play tennis tournaments competitively, and I started kind of at a late age, so I never got like that good regionally, but I have won a few tournaments, so I guess that's something. And I also play like Super Smash Bros. Melee. I used to play it competitively. Someone actually just commented asking me if I do, and he was like, wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting when people from different communities end up meeting. It's like, oh, we're both in these like two niche communities. That's actually really cool.
Yes, it is.
So actually, Jacob Hutnick from Canada, I think he lives in like Ontario or something. He's like really good at 4x4. I think he's made like Nats finals before in the US, and he actually plays. I've seen him at Smash tournaments as well. So that's kind of interesting. I think he's actually better than me at cubing and Smash. So I'll have to catch up to him in one of them.
Mm-hmm. So could you just explain about your channel, like give a description on what you do and what kind of videos you make?
Yeah, sure. So I make tutorials for I began with more advanced tutorials, but then I ended up moving more to beginner and advanced now, which I do both of. So for example, I have like a tutorial on how to solve the Rubik's Cube, but then like literally like 100 more videos on like how to do the cross better, how to do F12 better, the last layer, and how to get faster in just so many different ways. Because in the beginning, I wasn't thinking that you were going to be able to make that many videos. Like how many topics could I possibly cover? But then because I was making more, I was learning more, and I found that really helped myself as well. And it's really nice having the community, like having a well-established community that is like asking me to make certain types of videos, or and then I also kind of moved on to more like comedy style videos within the realm of cubing, like renaming the PLLs, which I just take some algorithm names and just change what they are. Some people thought it was serious, which I thought was kind of funny because it obviously wasn't a serious video. So I've just basically been doing that. And I also do reviews, which is not the main goal of my channel, but it is something that's necessary within cubing because different cubes give people different times. And yeah, that's about it.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed recently you just said, you've been doing a lot of like tutorials on how to improve and different things like that. Why do you like focus more on that area than like the normal unboxings or reviews or those types of videos?
So that's actually an interesting thing you bring up, because I noticed that you said unboxings being more of the normal, and it's not that I disagree with that. I think I've come to agree with that, but in like when I first started my channel, I thought that wasn't the normal one because that's not the type that I watched. So so I think like I make more tutorials because I care a lot about getting fast. Like that's where I find the most enjoyment, not out of the cubes themselves. And so, I watched channels like Felix and Colin Burns and Cubing World, and those channels didn't really do a lot of unboxings. I remember the first time I saw an unboxing was probably from Colin Burns, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting," but it's kind of like a long video where nothing really happened. And then I think Felix has. I don't even know if he's made any besides like his one on the GAN Air, which was just first impressions. He doesn't actually like do unboxings, I think. Yeah. So, and then at the same time, there were like JR Cuber and whoever else was doing unboxings at the same time, Crazy Bad Cuber, like a long time ago. And I didn't realize that those were out there. So when I started my channel, I was like, isn't everyone doing tutorials? But then after I started my channel, I found everyone else's channels and I realized that that wasn't actually what everyone was doing. But I've actually like I've talked to like some people who make reviews like DG Cubes and them, and they said that, which I agree with, it's that they don't really like making reviews because it's not quite as fun as making other types of videos, because the video kind of follows a structure, and if you don't have anything to say about a certain cube, you still have to like pull something out to say about it. And yeah, sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating making reviews, and it's just not like the most fun thing in the world.
Okay.
But sometimes unboxings can be really fun. Like when I unbox like a ton of cubes at once. I think I've done that a few times, but just trying like a bunch of cubes at once and getting in that mindset for a little while instead of just like testing one cube for 5 minutes, that can be pretty fun as well. Because then some of them are just really bad, and some of them like are like really surprisingly good, like the Little Magic. So, and then I also had some fun ones in there. I think I like unboxed a Tiger 2x2. Have you seen that, the Yushin Tiger?
I've seen it on the Cubicle and stuff like that, but not in any videos.
Yeah, it's a pretty, like, it turns decently well for a giant shape mod. And I still have it like on a shelf behind me, so I actually find it really entertaining to just like see once in a while and turn it.
Yeah, personally, I don't like that sort of puzzle. Maybe if I actually had it and played with it, I would. But like companies coming out with funny things like that, like the Christmas tree and some other things they've come out with, it just doesn't really appeal to me.
Well, like, okay, if you had to go and buy it, maybe that's one thing. But like, let's say I just gave it to you right now and just let you play around with it. Do you think you'd like keep it and be like, yeah, I kind of like this?
I would say yes.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. So it's just like, I just wanted to add something fun to the video, which is why I got like a Yushin Tiger.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was, well, I don't usually get shape mods. It's not my thing either, but I thought the Tiger looked especially cute. So that's why I liked it.
Keeping on the topic of videos, what video have you had the most fun creating? And this is actually recording the video, editing, thinking up what to do, all that kind of stuff, not the after product.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting that you say not the after product, because sometimes I'll have a lot of fun making a video and then I'll look back on it and be like, why? But sometimes the videos that I have the most fun making are the ones that I end up filming or editing. It doesn't matter. Like, it just goes like way into the night and I should be sleeping, but I have not yet because I really want to get this thing done. You know what I mean, right? Like you just really want to get something done, and so you don't even want to sleep or anything. You just want to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Some podcast episodes are especially like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And these are really long. So, so I'm sure this takes a while to edit.
Sometimes, depending on the episode. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think one of the ones that I've spent the longest time on, and obviously I wouldn't spend a long time if I wasn't having some kind of fun with it, was the unboxing of 20 plus cubes. That I think the video was like 20 minutes ish. And a lot of it was just me trying to make it shorter because it was 30 minutes at first. And I was like, that is too long. But that's the one that included the Yushin Tiger, I think. Or maybe it wasn't the first one with the Tiger. I can't remember. But it just had so many different cubes. And that's when I was kind of getting in the mindset of like, okay, trying out cubes can be fun. It can be fun if there's that many at once, and it's all about the first impressions, not really about like trying to figure out how to be great with each of them, like I do with some 3x3s that don't end up being great.
Mm-hmm.
Volk power. Yeah, and then so that one, and also the ones that look kind of fun in the end product, like some of the more entertaining videos, honestly are not quite as fun to make because it's not like my thing. I'm good at making tutorials, but I'm not that great at making entertainment videos as far as like experience wise. So those require a ton of retakes and like thinking of a structure for how I want to go about the jokes. And like I wish I could do that spontaneously, but I'm really bad at that. So those ones end up taking a long time, and by the time I'm editing, I already hate it. But watching it back, it's kind of fun. But the other thing is I don't really like seeing my face on camera, so I guess that's one reason why it doesn't end up being that fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Have there been any specific podcast episodes that you actually found like more fun to edit than other ones?
The ones where I can just listen to them and not do anything, but those are pretty rare. But I guess, I mean, I always try to hard to listen to the guest and think of the next question during the interview. But sometimes I miss certain things during the interview, and it's like listening to it again, I am able to actually listen to it that time and learn the information.
Yeah, exactly right. Like I've heard like just random podcasts in the past where I would think like how is this person picking up on questions for their for the person they're interviewing, where I didn't even think about it, or it's like, wow, that was such a good question, right? Like I feel like it's such a hard skill to, like, interviewing must be such a tough skill.
You definitely get better at it as you do more, but the first ones can be difficult.
Yeah. How have you found it? Do you think you've like improved a lot in interviewing?
I would say most certainly my first few well, I guess the thing I think I improved on is asking better questions and getting more in depth, like not just asking basic questions like what's your main or tell me about yourself or stuff like that.
Yeah, and I guess that comes from experience because you have to try certain questions to know if they're going to work out well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Have there ever been any like past episodes where you listen back and you're like, why did I think that was a good idea? Like, I don't know, maybe for certain things you said.
Like what do you exactly mean? Like questions
like, have
I
you ever
asked?
asked a question or not asked a certain question and you were like, why did I ask that? Or how did I possibly not think of that question? Something like that.
I don't remember specific things on not asking a question, but there have been times like, how did I forget to ask him about that or something? So that has happened. Questions like, why did I ask that? I don't think. Sometimes I've removed questions just because I didn't like the answer, the question, but that's not often.
Okay. Yeah, so I feel like sometimes when I watch some of my past videos, one thing that I tended to do was because I'm trying to like talk and not have any like stutters or pauses in my talking, I feel like I had to redo one take over and over, and sometimes I don't realize what I had just said before that. I guess that's not really a podcast sort of problem, but what happened to me was, for example, I'd say half of a sentence because it's a very long sentence. So I say half of it and I could not get the last part right. So I'm just like, okay, I'm good with the first half. And then I just say the next half of the sentence until I get that one right. And then sometimes when I'm editing, I realize that this doesn't make sense anymore. Like I forgot what I actually did in the first half and the second half doesn't make sense. So when I try to piece it together, sometimes in the past, I would just be like, oh, I'll just use some editing to fix that. And try to make it end up working out in the end, like maybe piece part of a different sentence onto it. But then now when I see that in my editing, I'm just like, oh God, I can't believe I let myself do that in the past. Now I just completely cut out that sentence or refilm the whole thing.
That can be a lot easier and save you a lot of time doing that. So
yeah,
I've done similar things in the past.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the editing is just looking at the waveform of the speech and like picking out where it is like which parts you need to throw away. At least that's like the first big chunk of my editing for my videos.
It's actually pretty cool what you can do with the actual audio file and when you can see the waveforms, because you can piece certain things together and it sounds good, but it's actually two total different clips or stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes I do that, and I feel like I've gotten better with that. My clips used to be like, the way I pieced them together used to be very choppy. Like if you watch my first few videos, I actually took down some of the first few videos because I hated them so much. But like the main one you can see from long ago is the 11 finger tricks video, which is the very first one I ever made. And some of the piecing together is so ridiculous, and I don't know how I let myself get away with that. But oh well, it happened.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And then like listening to other podcasts, sometimes like I guess I've gotten a really good ear for hearing those changes in audio, like where someone pieced it together, even if they tried really hard. And sometimes listening to podcasts, I can hear like, oh, they cut themselves out there or added something in there, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah, definitely. I think I think I sometimes spend, or at least I used to spend, a little bit too much time if I'm trying to like, if I'm like, oh, I can't throw away this sentence, but I need to piece it together in a way that actually makes sense. And I spend too much time like on that, but I think I don't realize how many people would not notice. Because like sometimes I watch some people's videos, like especially people who do a lot of like fast talking in their videos, they tend to piece things together where sometimes one sound hasn't even ended yet and they're on to the next one. And I think it's like, well, when I watch that, I don't really care. So maybe I shouldn't really care when I'm piecing together my stuff. Like, it's just one little thing. And sometimes I spend like a few minutes on that, like couple frames of transition.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So what has your channel growth looked like over the past, let's say, year or so? Or let's say from when you started. That was just over 2 years ago. So, like, how quickly did you get your first 1,000 subscribers, and then what has your growth looked like after that?
Okay, it's still quite fresh in my memory, so I think I can kind of just go over it all. So I started in like September, and I made the 11 finger tricks video because I thought it'd be useful for a lot of people. I posted that on the speed solving forums, and I think the day I did that, I probably got like 2 subscribers maybe, which was huge because that's 2 compared to 0. And then I think I was steadily getting like 1 to 2 per day until like January-ish, when I was about to get 100 subscribers. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to bed. When I wake up, I should have 100. And then when I woke up, I had 160.
Whoa.
So I ended up making a video on that because I was really surprised. But basically what ended up happening was Patrick Ponce posted my F12 look ahead video in somewhere on Facebook because he thought it would be useful to people. And I was like, wow, someone really fast actually thought my video would be useful. So that was pretty cool. But then ever since that, I think I hit like 200 subscribers when I made the cross tips video, and that's actually still in the description of that video. And I don't remember when exactly I hit 1,000. It might have been like a month later, but then at some point after that, I had the fastest growth that my channel has ever had, which was over 200 subs per day. Because I actually went and looked at this every day because it was crazy, like how fast it was going. And if you actually go look at like my channel statistics from before, the statistics basically start around the time I had 100 subs. So it looks like, as far as you could tell, it looks like the moment I created my channel, I was getting faster sub growth than I had ever had, like even compared to now, which I thought was interesting. So during that time, people were telling me that like, wow, you're going to hit 70K subs by the end of the year based on projections. And I was thinking, that could actually happen because, you don't expect your growth to ever like get slower, but it did happen, obviously, because in the beginning, someone shared my video and that was what caused it to happen. But then it kind of slowed down afterwards. And so anyway, after a year, I think I had about 30,000 subs. And then by the end of this year, I should have about 80,000. So this is actually way faster than I ever expected. And I feel like in order for something like this to happen, you have to get lucky in some way. And yeah, I just I don't want to write this off to like, oh, I did something right, because it's kind of like if you listen to like the people who have like, you know, the people with like 1 million subs or something, they'll often say like, here's what you got to do. But like, there are people who are doing the exact same thing and not getting as lucky. And I feel like that's a bit of an injustice to say like, oh, this is what you got to do because I did it and it worked, because it doesn't always work, right? It's a bit like a lottery.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people listening right now are probably pretty jealous, I guess, including me, of how fast, how many subscribers you were able to get in such a short amount of time. Is there like what like types of videos and how often were you posting when you started to get that big growth?
Okay, I'm based on my ability to produce videos at the time. I think when I first started, like up until 100 subs, my goal was to make one video every 3 days, which just covered like, I think I made like an OLCP algorithm video. I was thinking about some last layer tricks, so I made one about that, and then like most of them were just like tricks, and then not until the F12 look ahead video did I actually make like, it's like, here's a compilation of things all the things you need to get good at this one specific topic. And I feel like what do you call it? Superlatives. Do you know what that word means?
I don't.
Okay, so I feel like I only know this because I took French and they use that. But anyway, a superlative is a comparative word that is the like the most. Okay, it's like the word most. It's like there's more, which is comparative to say that one thing's more than another, and then there's superlative, which is to say most. It's like this is the number one. And I feel like, because when I was starting YouTube and I wasn't getting a lot of subscribers, I was thinking that like I was thinking like there must be things that I don't know. Like obviously it's going to take time, but I also wanted to make sure I knew everything that I would have to know before trying to like say that, oh, I just wasn't able to do it. I wanted to make sure I knew everything. So one of the things I was looking up, which it seems a bit manipulative now that I think about it, and I don't think it really does that much, but it's something called context words. And to be honest, I don't know what it does, but it's just like words that people will tend to pick up on and have a higher click-through rate for. And that must just be on studies. I don't think that like actually putting certain words in your title is going to attract people. But anyway, what I really got from that was that like I saw a lot of superlative words in there, like most and top and all that. And so I think what I got from that was I wanted to make videos that would be like in some sense conclusive. Like here's one F2L tip. No, here's all the F2L tips. Like I think that's one thing I tried to focus a little bit more on, because like, okay, I'll just give you guys a breakdown of how the YouTube algorithm works, because people say it's confusing, but it's not really. They want two things mostly. They want click-through rate, like, which is like kind of like clickbaity stuff, but that doesn't work unless you also get watch time, which is how long someone is going to stay on your video. And this isn't like some secret that I pulled out of YouTube. In the new YouTube Studio thing, they actually tell you that. They're like, here's what we want. So I've heard other people say this thing before, but it wasn't until like a couple weeks ago, I think, that YouTube's new studio actually noticed it said that. And so I think in some way, like by doing that, I was able to like achieve those two goals. And then that just makes YouTube recommend your videos out more. That's one thing. Like, I guess I kind of focused too hard on like the YouTube side of things here, but then like, I think what's more important, I don't know why I didn't say this all first, but I just kind of got like down a rabbit hole. But what's more important is just making content that is unique, which is not always possible, but it's best if it's unique. And then also content that is useful to people in some way, which is also not always possible. Like, for example, if you're a vlogger, it's not always useful to people, but then in that case, like someone needs to like you, so that the use in it is entertainment. So there always has to be like some use to it. And like I really like the way Vsauce put it. He sometimes doesn't release videos that he spent a long time making because he feels like it doesn't justify its own existence. And I don't know, if you just want to think about that for a second, like for a video needs to justify its own existence. Like, why is this here? If it wasn't here, would people be any worse off, right? So I think that's why I really like tutorials, because I like helping people and making like things better for people. So that's one thing I tried to focus on. I tried to focus on like making content that would be useful to people.
Yeah, it is so rewarding when you get a comment like, "Thanks for making this video, it helped." I just got one of those today.
Oh, really?
I
What
made
video was it on?
it was how to fix a internal spring issue on the Lingao clock. It was where the spring would wind up and then jump back, turning the dial or turning the
Oh,
face of the piece. There was just
yeah.
a
I don't
little
know
piece
anything
of
about clocks, but I've definitely heard that clock hardware is pretty bad. So if you
Mhm.
can help people on that, that actually seems like it'd be pretty useful.
Yeah, there was like a little piece of plastic residue inside one of the clock faces, so I made a video on showing how to remove it and fix the clock, and people have it. I have helped people in doing that, so that was nice.
Yeah, it feels awesome when you get those comments, right?
For sure. If your videos were a 9 out of 10 right now, what do you think your videos were, or how would you rate your videos back then when you started getting all the
Uh,
subscribers?
do they have to be a 9 out of 10 right now?
What would they be?
11. No,
Okay.
I'm
Well,
thinking
I'm
more like
thinking like,
lower than that.
okay.
I always feel like there's something I could have done better, and I always wish I could make an edit after it's already been released. I really wish I could do that, but yeah. Okay, so um, there was one time where like there was one time more recently when I was making fewer tutorials than before, because there was a bunch of cubes coming out over the summer, and I made a bunch of reviews on them. And because I was making less tutorials, I remember one day I sat down and I was going to film a tutorial on something. And I just remember thinking, wow, this feels kind of foreign to me. Like I haven't done this in a while. So I like, I think I started filming something. I really didn't like it. And then that night when I should have been sleeping, I just went on like a YouTube binge watch rabbit hole, just clicking on the recommended videos, except I only clicked on my own videos because I really wanted to like get a feel for what I was doing wrong before and what I can do better now, because I'm always trying to like improve it. And some videos, like some videos, I would definitely give like a 5 out of 10. Like the use and the content was okay, but the way it was presented, in my opinion, some of these things are just not very good. Like the way I explained things in the past, I felt like I didn't have a game plan going into explaining something, and now I feel like I have more of a game plan, because I used to just like put the camera in front of me and start recording, but then just like spend like maybe 30 minutes on a 5-minute video just trying to say things until something ended up coming out right. But now I actually write down some notes before I start. It saves time on editing. It makes the video more clear. It's just like a lot better. So yeah, there were definitely some 5 out of 10s before, and if right now it had to be a 9 out of 10. But I think there were also some videos where I thought I did a pretty good job, that are like comparable to the ones now. Like for my one-handed tips video, the one, like I think I only have one video on that, and it was like an introductory video, and I was thinking like there's nothing more I would add to it. And I feel like if that's the case, and it's quite a short video already, then I think that's like exactly what I'm going for. So I think there are some really good ones, but there are some, I don't know if I can think of any, maybe like the first few advanced F12 videos. I feel like I was kind of like running circles around what I was trying to say during those, because I didn't have a clear idea of what to do. I was just trying to make a video on a certain topic without having that much of a plan.
What do you think your biggest strength is? Is it like camera technique, like what to say and giving information, or coming up with ideas and like doing what the video is actually about, like producing interesting videos?
I think, well, seeing as most of my videos are tutorials, I think my biggest strength is like being able to explain something to someone in a way that makes sense if they had not learned it before. Because I feel like this is just something I tried to like keep in mind my whole life for seemingly no reason at all. It's just something I like to do. Where if I learn something new, I always I just have this instinctual value in trying to make sure I still remember what it was like to not have known it. I don't know why I do that, but it does help make teaching easier because I feel like I'm always like a little bit more conscious of what someone who hasn't learned it yet might be thinking. And I feel like for some topics, I like it really shows that I didn't really do that, because for some topics, I feel like I go over it a little bit too fast and assume certain things. But then for other topics, like maybe like for the F12 video, that's personally like the video that I thought I explained the best, because I feel like I still had this really like conscious idea of what it was like to not know F2L and what needed to be presented in order to have it make sense. And even though I learned F2L like a million years ago, like 6 years ago, it still kind of was within me to like have like an idea of what it's like to not know it. So yeah, but then sometimes with every strength, sometimes you can overestimate it, and that's where some of the worst videos come out, where I feel like I did not explain something so well.
Mm-hmm. How did you decide on the name J Perm?
Yeah, people ask me this all the time, especially the profile picture. They're like, why is it a T Perm? which was actually, so I was, interesting that your name is actually CornerCutter. This is like, it's just basically something related to cubing that isn't cubes or cuber or cubing,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the name that you chose as well.
Thank you.
I was actually thinking of something similar, but so basically the first few brainstorm ideas I had was just anything related to cubes, which included corner twist, which, you know, corner twist has an inherently bad connotation with it, so that's why I didn't go with it. But at some point I was thinking like, oh, the PL, I was like, just pick one. And then I thought of the fastest ones, because obviously those would have a more positive connotation. I'm not going to pick like N Perm.
G Perm.
Yeah, those would not be that great. I wanted something that's a little bit positive, but also like kind of fun to say. So obviously for fast ones, we have U Perm and T Perm, but I thought J Perm it just sounded a little bit better. And it's kind of hard to like go back and see what that would have sounded like, because right now I feel like every time anyone says J Perm, I turn my head and look. Mm-hmm. So it's got a very different like feeling in my head compared to before. But before I was just like, you know, I think this sounds better. And so I went on Google and I searched for images of J Perm. And so obviously you have like the pictures of the arrows showing what pieces get swapped. But I thought that looked a bit clunky, so I scrolled down a little bit more and I saw the 2x2 that is currently my picture. Turns out that's actually from Chris Olsen's website, but I didn't steal it from him. I thought I did, but I didn't, because it turns out he just used a cube generator that an image generator that found that. So I can generate it myself as well. So I used to have a low quality image, but now I generated it myself and have a better quality image. But anyway, when I first saw that, my first thought, just like everyone else, was, how is that a J Perm? Mm-hmm. But I actually thought that's what made it interesting, because so as soon as I saw that, I was like, I have to go with J Perm now. Like if I go with T Perm with the same picture, it would work, but it wouldn't like be thought provoking at all. I thought of a thought provoking one that was simple. Like it just worked out. I don't know.
Do you think, I mean, is J Perm one of the more popular PLLs as well? It seems like, at least over the past year or so, I've not referencing your channel, I've heard just like do a J Perm before you do a official solve or something like that.
J Perms are definitely one of the faster ones, not just in absolute speed, but also in TPS, because well, at least for me, I use the MU versions of the U Perms. So for me, they're only 7 moves, and I can do them about the same speed as a J Perm, which is 13 moves. So I think one of the only PLLs that has a faster TPS than J Perm for most people is E Perm, because it's 16 moves and like is always alternating fingers. So that one is really easy to get high TPS on. But J Perm is just like, it's just like super fun because it has high TPS, and it's also one of the fastest ones. Mm-hmm. I believe for most people, the only things faster than J Perm might be like U Perm, and like honestly, I can't think of any. It might just be J Perm and U Perm is the fastest. Can you think of any that might be faster?
Let's see. If you're really good at double flick on the H Perm, that could be.
Yeah, I was actually thinking H Perm might be one of them, but I personally can't do it as fast because like it's really short, but it's got a ton of double moves in it. So, like for example, if you did something like RU, that's a lot faster than doing M2, and then followed by like another M2 later because you have to reset your fingers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, when you solve layer by layer on 2x2, do you actually use a J Perm? Or are you doing this T Perm action?
Oh my god, exposed. I use T Perm.
No.
That's because the way I do J Perm on a 3x3 uses a regrip, and on a 2x2, I could do it regripless because 2x2 is different, or I could just do a T Perm, which I already do regripless, so I just use a T Perm.
Oh, that's too bad.
but I think it's not like a big deal because technically both are suboptimal. There's a better like alg for that on 2x2 that doesn't work on 3x3, so it's like not a PLL. But so if I wanted to be optimal, I would just switch to that one. So that's my excuse for not using a J Perm when I could be.
Okay. Do you enjoy doing Q&A episodes?
Yeah, I think they're really fun. I always find myself talking a little bit too much.
Because if you said no, we were going to cut the interview right here because that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, well, you can actually edit it. So you can take this part, move it straight to the beginning of the episode, and then cut it right there. Yeah, I feel like I could do them more on my channel. I know DG Cubes and Derpy Cuber and hashtag and TPC and what's his name? The Adam Fetzer, I can't remember his channel name. The Rubik's Cube, yeah. They upload a lot of Q&As, and I feel like I could do more, but like I feel like it's a little bit boring if you do it too much, which is not the case for them because they have like a big group of people doing it, but like all in one Q&A. But I feel like if I do it myself, it's just like a little bit weird if you constantly do Q&As for yourself. But like I still think it's fun to talk about things that usually wouldn't get talked about because I keep making tutorials about things, and like sometimes people have questions and it's just like, well, that's like too vague, or like everyone has the same question, for example, and I can't answer all of it because like someone's just like, how do you do X, this vague thing, like how do you be sub 15? I have this, like here's the things I'm good at, how do I be sub 15? And I'm just like, watch the video. I can't answer your comments, I can't answer everyone's comments, it's too much. And then when it's like Q&A time, that's like a time when okay, everyone's looking right now, yeah, I can answer your question right now while everyone's looking. And then I think it's good to like have some time between Q&As because otherwise there's not like time for the questions to show up. Yeah, that's just my opinion.
What cube shops have you partnered with, and how has that affected your channel over the past 2 years?
Okay, so quick interesting thing before I talk about the main sponsor, but Magna Cubes is this. Okay, so there's this guy David who it might have just been him and his friends, but they're trying to start like a premium cube service, and I don't think they still do it anymore. But they sent me a GTS2, a GTS2M, which ended up being my main for a while. I made a video about that. I talked about them, and then ever since, like after that video, then I just started doing like I applied for a SpeedCube shop, and then so I've been sponsored with SpeedCube shop since then. And how it's affected my channel. First of all, I get a lot more cubes, and therefore I can do more reviews. And in the beginning, when I first started doing reviews, I felt like it felt foreign to me because I knew people like, well, it was my impression that people weren't here to watch reviews, like on my channel specifically. And I also, those videos tended to not do as well, which I was okay with because that's just like what my impression of my channel was. But I feel like as I built that over time, then like having like this backlog of reviews that you've already done really helps for each subsequent review, because then people like have an idea of how they can relate to you in terms of what cubes they might like and like how well their preferences suit with yours. So because of that, I feel like now the reviews tend to do just as well as any other video, and I feel like that's definitely helped my channel a lot because it's just like another aspect I can do rather than just tutorials over and over, which might get a bit boring.
How have you used Patreon to improve your channel?
So when I made Patreon, that was at a time when I was uploading once a week if I would like try my very, very best. And that's because there was just like too much school going on, and I also had to work a lot. So I was thinking that like if I wanted to really continue as much as I do with a YouTube channel, then I'm going to need a way to make a little more money out of it. Otherwise, it doesn't justify the amount of time I put into it, because it's not just that. If I had infinite time, obviously I keep doing this as much as I can, but like the time needs to somehow convert into money. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to make a living doing anything. I can't just like split half and half on this if one of it like is just like a big time sink that causes me to not be able to make enough money. Because like my job is tutoring right now, and tutoring has very flexible hours. So, but you do have to work a lot of hours in order to do it. So if I managed to make more money from something else, I could just do less time tutoring. And so I realized that I realized that with Patreon that was possible. And like I was like right now I'm able to make a video every 3 days, like in general, which is what I used to do. And that's because I was able to take some time off of work, which has helped a lot. Like now, it's not actually like 100% about the time. It's also about the mental energy, which I didn't have before. Before it was like I come home from work and I was so exhausted. All I could do is either like cube and do really poorly because my brain's not there, or I would just have to like sleep. And like no matter which one I did, at some point I'd have to like do my homework and then go to school the next day and then go straight to work and then come home. And I didn't have that many hours for other things in the day. So the thought of editing a video, I was just like, I really don't want to do that. But then now I just have way more time. Like it's just like very small differences. It's not like, oh, I gained a whole day every week, but it is like with every little small difference. If you add like 2 more hours, for example, in one specific day, but you also spent like 2 hours less, like doing something mentally strenuous, then that makes for like 2 hours I can spend editing instead of 2 hours I can spend like procrastinating on stuff. And I felt like that helped a lot, like small changes like that.
Yeah, that's really cool that you have fans that are able to support you.
Yeah, I was actually blown away by the fact that people would do that, because like, you know, I hear Patreon stuff all the time, but then like maybe it's just because I'm young and I don't make a lot of my own money yet. So I was because I had never like thought to support someone on Patreon, but then now that I think about it, if I was making enough money to support myself, then yeah, I would. But I've just been like living with my parents and going to school, and like that thought never occurs to me. Like how could I possibly give up some of my own money if I don't even have enough of my own money? But yeah, like well, besides that, like it's just like there are some people who are like what do you call it? Supporting me because they want to, which is awesome. And there are also some people I've noticed who are not quite as active on Patreon, and like it also makes sense that because I'm providing some value back, right? So specifically, like for $10 you can get solve critiques every month, and I feel like some people are just there for that, which is totally okay, right? Because
for sure.
I don't if I was just like give me money and get nothing in return, I really don't think that many people would be doing it out of the kindness of their heart, right? There's got to be something in return. And one of the things I found hard with Patreon is to give something back that doesn't take up too much of my time, right? Because like if you hear like, for example, your favorite YouTuber got Patreon, you might be now wondering like how much time are they going to be putting into that instead of their channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like some people,
if they're having extra benefits, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like one thing that you can't do is something that takes a long time per person for Patreon, because then the more supporters you have, the less time you have to make videos, which is the opposite of what it should be. So for me, making the critiques doesn't take too long, and so it's been working. Like obviously, if I was back down to making a video a week, then the whole Patreon thing didn't work out at all. So I'm trying to like make sure I keep my priorities in check, and like if I'm not uploading enough, then like I'll always priority for the YouTube channel, not for Patreon, but I'm still able to get all the Patreon stuff done. So I think right now there's a good balance.
Now, I really liked your comparison between the Wu Shui and the mini Aosu 4x4s.
Oh, thank you.
Has your opinion of the mini Wu Shui changed? Because I love that one much more than the regular Wu Shui.
The regular Wu Shui is like really universally loved, and the mini Wu Shui I feel like is a little more polarizing. I've definitely said it's worse in the past than I still think it is now. However, I still think that it cannot be my main. I just do not think it's nearly as good as the Wu Shui. And I know a lot of people have different opinions on this. Maybe it's down to like turning style or something. Maybe the Wu Shui is just like more of a universally good for every turning style, and the mini Wu Shui is just not quite as much. But I know Felix uses the mini Wu Shui, at least last I checked. And apparently you use it. A lot of people use it, so it's good. But I just don't think it's like my go-to recommendation, because a lot of people don't like it as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think the Wu Shui is a little big, or do you like how the size right now?
I've always thought that the regular Wu Shui is a little bit big, which is why I was really excited for the mini Wu Shui. Mm-hmm. I was thinking if it's a Wu Shui and smaller, then that's perfect. But it's not exactly that. It is a little bit different, and I have kind of looked at the mechanism, I think, and it's a little bit different. Because I'm sure just scaling things down to be smaller doesn't always work exactly as you plan. So you have to make a few changes, and it just feels really different. Like it feels a little clickier. It doesn't feel exactly like the same cube. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on it?
The size just makes a huge difference, and my older Wu Shui was getting, well, I guess the magnets were a little bit stronger than I liked, so it was made it a little slower, or I guess even slower, and that's something I really don't like, slow cubes. So I don't think I've found my perfect 4x4 yet, or they haven't made my perfect 4x4 yet, but I do definitely want to try the Aosu, but of course the size makes it not what I want.
Yeah. It's actually, it says it's 61 millimeters, while the mini Wu Shui and Wu Shui are 60 and 62. So it's technically in between, but having looked at it, it does look like if it is 61, it's like 61.4 or something. It's like it's closer to the Wu Shui than the mini Wu Shui.
Mm-hmm. What kind of plastic do you prefer for big cubes, stickerless or stickered?
I don't know about the plastic, but I just do know I want stickerless because I don't have to resticker it. And having a little bit of sticker pieces coming up really affects my solves. So I don't know if it does for you too.
I've only used stickerless, so
okay,
and that's what I really like.
Well, you got the privilege going on, because back when I had to, back before like I had tried stickerless big cubes, or even like it didn't even exist before. It was like, it's kind of a recent thing. Anyway, back then, one of the reasons I didn't like big cubes was because just the idea of having to maintain the stickers was annoying, and I just didn't like maintaining anything. Like I don't like lubing, I don't like tensioning. I just want to solve for a long time.
Yeah. What annoys you most about people who comment on your videos?
Oh yeah, number one thing that annoys me is when people ask a question that is supposed to be like, the point of a certain one of my videos was to answer that question. So when people ask me like, how do you be sub 20? Like I have a video on that. And if you watch the video and you still don't know, then how am I supposed to provide more value to you? Right? Like unless you give me something more specific, like, I'm particularly struggling with look ahead because, like, if you say something like that, then that maybe I can answer it. Maybe I can't. I don't know. But if you just say something like how to be sub 20, then I have a video on that. How do I have a better cross? I have a video on that. Like if the question is that vague, there's probably a video for it. And if it's very specific, then I can usually help. So a lot of people had really vague questions, and that it just kind of annoys me because like I want to answer it, but there's nothing of value I can provide, but besides like go watch the video.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have one tip for YouTubers, no matter what size their channel is? And I know you don't like that word.
Oh, at first I thought you said new cubers, but then
Oh.
when you said channel, I was like, oh, you said YouTubers, and like, I'm like I'm okay with most things. Like I'm okay with it. If I had to pick one, I would pick YouTube cubers, but it's like it's not a big deal. Like I do say, and I have said earlier, that you should try to make something unique, but that's not always possible in terms of like what creative ideas you have yourself. The thing is, it's hard to give tips like this because for me, the reason I made my channel was because I wanted to do the specific thing. But if you have your channel first, then, well, it's not like putting the chicken before the egg because it's fine to, putting the egg before, I don't know. I forgot what the phrase was, but it's fine to have a channel before having an idea because you could work with that and eventually find it through like inspiration of doing things over and over. But for me, like I had no thoughts about making a channel until I had certain ideas in mind, and I was like, okay, got to pick a name, got to everything. But anyway, that aside, for tips for making the channel, sometimes I feel like people ask like, what's the most important thing? Is it like, for example, is it thumbnails? Is it audio, video, whatever? And my opinion on it is just be good at all of this. Like it's all necessary, and it's not like when you're cubing, like, are you going to be better at look ahead or TPS? It's one or the other. It's not like this. Like for videos, you can very easily be good at all of these things at once. And if you want the best chance of success, then you have to be good at all of these things at once. So like as you film the video, obviously just like use any decent phone, which is what I do. I use a Samsung Galaxy S7, and that gets decent audio and decent video as long as you're not like intentionally making it bad. And then for editing, just edit out anything unnecessary, and that's mostly fine. You don't need to put that much text on screen, but text on screen can often help. And then for thumbnails, try to distance yourself from what the thumbnail looks like and try to think more about, if I saw this in my recommended, would I or would I not click on this? And then for title, I feel like title's a little bit less important than thumbnail, but just like don't make the title like an inside joke. I feel like I've seen that a lot with newer cubers or just channels. You make a title that's like a lot of people won't get, and you feel like it would make people think, oh, what's going on with that? But in reality, it just makes people kind of disinterested. At least it does for me. So I feel like making a title that people will like kind of have a little bit of relatability with is a little bit better than having a title that people are just going to wonder about. Because I don't think people actually have that much wonder about something unless it has like 1 million views already, and they're like, oh, what's the deal with that? But if it's like a new video with a weird title and has like 10 views, then they'll just be like, it's probably something weird, and then not click on it.
Those are definitely some helpful tips. Now, final question, what is something you've changed your mind about recently?
I feel like I feel like my thoughts like for cubing evolve over time, and they don't usually have any drastic changes. But one thing I guess I'll kind of take this in a different direction. One thing that I think I realized more of recently that I kind of knew but never put to practice as much was practicing like good habits that you like. Just don't do anything that you would not envision yourself doing if you were like at your very, very best. Like, for example, like imagine ideally how you would solve, and then just don't do anything besides that. So this obviously doesn't work if you're more starting out, because you have like a laid out progression for you to go through. If you don't see yourself solving with a beginner method one day, but you're still using the beginner method, then like that's fine for now. But in terms of like if you think you're pretty good at something, for example, for me on 5x5, I realized that I was using a lot of wrist turns to turn the bottom layer because it's difficult to use your ring fingers. Now you could just use your ring fingers instead, but that's still difficult because you have to kind of regrip the cube. So I noticed that one thing that was very uncomfortable for me was doing like triple layer U-turns because it would move certain pieces around that I'm not used to moving. Because I usually keep like for example, I keep the middle edges in place and the U3 turns will actually move them. So I've been doing more of that recently because I'm like, if I'm going to be like ideally how I would end up solving a 5x5, it would include that. It would include like triple U-turns because it's just better for my finger tricks. And in terms of being harder to track certain pieces, well, I'll get used to it. And I've been doing that for a week, and it was really, really annoying. But right now, I've gotten back to about the same as my normal times using this technique, and I still feel like I'm pretty bad at it. So, like, it's been a while since I've kind of felt like that sort of improvement in terms of doing something completely new and then being really, really bad at it and then getting good at it and then eventually being better than you were before. So because I feel like I've been well established in how good I think I am in every single puzzle, that is like, especially for 3x3, but then, there are definitely improvements I can make on 4x4 as well. Not quite as much on big cubes because I'm newer to them, but like, I know you're really good at Pyraminx, right? That's your main event?
Yes, you're right.
So are there any thoughts that you would have? Like, is there anything you do that you don't think you would ideally do in a solve?
Oh, I mean, of course, tips can be, there's, depending on which way they're turned, it can sometimes be hard to flick two tips at the same time, but opposite ways. So I don't always ideally solve those. Sometimes I just use my whole hand.
Yeah, is it because you're not like confident in a certain technique?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's definitely something you could practice, right? Like if you I feel like when you're practicing at home, it's very it's like you're in a comfort zone, right? And if you do things that are less comfortable, it doesn't quite feel as good, but eventually you'll get better because of it.
You're exactly right, yes.
And I feel like everyone can find these little things if you just think about it, right? Is there anything you're doing that if you were the best in the world, you would no longer be doing that? And then if so, and you aren't currently working on anything, then work on that.
Awesome and interesting answer. If you want to subscribe to J Perm's channel, and you definitely should be subscribed, go to the CornerCutterPodcast.com to visit the show notes for the link, or just search J Perm on YouTube or Google, of course. J Perm, thank you so much for taking the time today to come on the CornerCutter podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was really fun.
That was an awesome interview with J Perm. I learned a lot about him, his channel, and YouTube. So that was very interesting. I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you have any comments on today's episode, feel free to reach out. My email address is josh@thecornercutterpodcast.com. Something I've been doing recently is selling the magnets you need to make a DIY magnetic clock. So the types of magnets you need are a certain size of ring magnets and then 5x1mm disc magnets. So they go on the pins. It makes your clock awesome. It's amazing what it does. And I've been selling those for $15. If you're interested in purchasing a set, you get 8 of the ring magnets and 8 of the disc magnets. Go to the cornercutterpodcast.com/clock magnets and you can fill out the form right there. Or you could just email me and that would work fine as well. The only other option for buying magnets for your magnetic or clock is buying them from eBay from the UK. So it takes a while for shipping, and then you either gotta order 5x1s from the US, which are pretty expensive, or from China, which takes a while. So I ship from the US and usually ship them out the same day. So if you're interested, please reach out. remember to enter the CornerCutter Podcast YouTube giveaway. I just crossed 100 subscribers. I've been waiting for that for a long time, and I'm super excited. That's pretty cool. So just go to the cornercutterpodcast.com/YouTube, and you can access my channel there. Next week, we will be having another debate show. We debate whether the Red Bull Championships are good for the community, or are they really disturbing the Cuban community and totally wrecking it. We dive into that, and as well, what method is best for 5x5, Yao 5 or reduction. So that's in next week's show, which is episode 61. And that is it for this week. Remember, for full show notes and links to everything I mentioned in this episode, go to the cornercutterpodcast.com, go to the episodes page, and now it's time to take this episode back to the scrambling table, and I'll talk to you guys again next week in episode 61 of the CornerCutter Podcast. I actually kind of had two guests on this week's episode.
Someone really fast actually thought my video would be useful. And so, did you hear that?
Yes, but keep going.
All right. I'll try to backtrack to where I was right before that happened.
Like how well their preferences suit with yours. So because of that. All right.